Yo ChronoCrew, it's your boy Chronos, back with another mind-bending what if, and this one's about to shake the whole multiverse. What if our boy Deku, yeah, that Deku, got his hands on the Gura Gura no Mi? This is part 1, so you already know we're just getting started. If you're ready for shockwaves that could crack reality itself, hit that subscribe button, punch that like button. We're aiming for 100 likes to drop part 2, and comment your favorite anime move that could mix with One Piece powers. Big love to the ChronoCrew legends holding it down every video. Your support means everything, and I'm just getting started. Now sit back, relax, and let's shatter some limits. Cue the quake. In a world where superpowers known as quirks define your place in society, one boy was born without anything special. This is the story of Izuku Midoriya, a quirkless dreamer in a world of heroes. But fate has a strange way of changing the impossible. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across Aldera Junior High as classes ended for the day. 14-year-old Izuku Midoriya carefully packed his hero analysis notebook into his backpack, his movements deliberately slow. Around him, classmates chatted excitedly about their quirks, their futures, their dreams, conversations he'd learned to tune out years ago. "Hey Deku!" Izuku's shoulders tensed at the familiar voice. Katsuki Bakugo stood in the doorway, palms crackling with small explosions, a predatory grin spreading across his face. Trying to sneak out without saying goodbye? That's pretty rude, don't you think? Bakugo's crimson eyes narrowed dangerously. Izuku clutched his backpack tighter. I wasn't cacken. I was just, save it. Bakugo stepped closer, flanked by his two cronies. I saw you taking notes about me again during quirk training. What are you planning to do with those, huh? You think studying heroes will somehow make you one? Why can't he just leave me alone? Izuku thought, backing away until his legs hit the desk behind him. All I've ever wanted was his respect. You're quirkless, Deku. Bakugo spat the words like poison. Ain't nobody. You should just give up already. The words cut deep, reopening wounds that never truly healed. Bakugo snatched the notebook from Izuku's trembling hands. No. Izuku lunged forward, but Bakugo was faster. With a casual flick, Bakugo sent the notebook flying out the third-floor window. Izuku watched in horror as his precious notes fluttered toward the school pond. If you want to be a hero so badly, Bakugo sneered, small explosions popping in his palm, there might be a way. Take a swan dive off the roof and pray you'll be born with a quirk in your next life. The classroom fell silent. Even Bakugo's friends looked uncomfortable. Something inside Izuku cracked. Without a word, he grabbed his bag and ran, tears threatening to spill from his eyes. He sprinted down the corridor, down the stairs, out into the courtyard. I won't cry. I won't cry. I won't. But the tears came anyway, hot and bitter down his cheeks. He retrieved his waterlogged notebook from the pond, clutching the soggy pages to his chest. Even now, even after everything, he couldn't let go of his dream. Bakugo watched from the window as Deku fished his pathetic notebook from the water. You went too far this time, Bakugo, one of his friends muttered. Shut up, Bakugo snapped, but something uncomfortable twisted in his gut. He hadn't meant to say that last part. It had just slipped out. That damn nerd. Why can't he just accept reality? Bakugo's fist clenched. What's so special about him anyway? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. He turned away from the window, ignoring the twinge of guilt. Let's go. I'm hungry. But as he walked away, Bakugo couldn't shake the image of Deku's face. Not the fear he'd expected, but something else. Something that looked almost like determination. Impossible. He's quirkless. Useless. Nothing will ever change that. Little did Bakugo know just how wrong he was. Izuku took the long way home, following the river that wound through a quiet, wooded area of Mizudafu. He needed time to think, to process, to rebuild his walls before facing his mother's worried questions. Take a swan dive off the roof. The words echoed in his mind. Is that really what you think of me, Kaken? Izuku whispered to the rushing water. That I'm better off dead than quirkless? He kicked a stone into the river, watching the ripples spread outward. For as long as he could remember, all he'd wanted was to be a hero like All Might, to save people with a fearless smile. But the world had made it abundantly clear. Without a quirk, that dream was impossible. A rustling sound from the bushes made Izuku jump. Great, more bullies? He tensed, ready to run, when the sound came again. Not footsteps, but something rolling down the embankment. Curiosity overcame caution. Izuku peered through the bushes toward the sound. There, nestled in a small depression near the riverbank, was what appeared to be a fruit. Izuku approached cautiously. It was unlike anything he'd ever seen before, spherical, about the size of a large melon, with a swirling pattern of blues and whites covering its surface. Strange, bulbous protrusions jutted from all sides, giving it an alien appearance. What in the world? Izuka murmured, crouching down. He reached out, half expecting the strange object to move or disappear, but his fingers connected with a solid, slightly rough texture. He picked it up, turning it over in his hands. It was surprisingly light for its size. This can't be natural, can it? Izuka thought, examining the fruit more closely. Maybe it's related to someone's quirk? Or, wait, a wild thought struck him. What if this wasn't just some random fruit? What if it was something more? Something special? His stomach growled, reminding him he hadn't eaten since breakfast. He'd been too nervous about the day's quirk assessment to keep anything down at lunch. I probably shouldn't. But his hands were already moving, breaking off a piece of the strangely textured fruit. The moment the piece broke free, a faint, almost electric sensation tingled through his fingers. Izuka hesitated, staring at the white flesh of the fruit. This is stupid, he told himself. But what if? What if this was his chance? What if this strange fruit could somehow change things? It was a ridiculous thought, desperate even, but Izuka was beyond caring about ridiculous or desperate. He took a bite. Instantly, he regretted it. The taste was indescribably awful, like rotting fish mixed with battery acid. Izuka gagged, nearly spitting it out, but some stubborn part of him refused to give up. He'd started this, he would finish it. Bite after terrible bite, Izuka forced himself to consume the fruit, each mouthful worse than the last. By the time he finished, his eyes were watering and his stomach was churning violently. That was disgusting, he gasped, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. What was I thinking? He waited, half expecting something magical to happen, but nothing changed. The river continued flowing, birds continued singing, and Izuka Midoriya remained painfully, undeniably quirkless. With a bitter laugh, Izuka rose to his feet. Of course nothing happened. What did I expect? That eating some weird fruit would suddenly give me a quirk? He turned to head home, when a wave of dizziness hit him. The world tilted sideways, the ground beneath his feet suddenly unstable. What's happening? Izuku managed before collapsing onto his knees. His body burned from the inside out as if his blood had been replaced with molten metal. He tried to scream, but no sound escaped his tightening throat. The pain intensified, centering in his chest before radiating outward to his limbs. Am I dying? The terrified thought flashed through his mind. Was the fruit poisonous? The ground beneath him seemed to ripple, or was that just his vision going dark? Izuka pressed his palms against the earth, trying to steady himself, to ground himself against the pain. And then it happened. A pulse, invisible but undeniably real, emanated from his hands. The earth before him cracked, a spiderweb of fractures spreading outward. Small pebbles danced and jumped. The water in the nearby river sloshed violently as if disturbed by an unseen force. Izuku stared, uncomprehending. Did I do that? He lifted one trembling hand, staring at his palm in disbelief. It looked the same as always, scarred from years of note-taking, but otherwise ordinary. Yet something felt fundamentally different. Hesitantly, he pressed his palm against the ground again and concentrated. Not knowing what he was doing, acting purely on instinct, Izuku pushed with something other than his muscles. Something new, something powerful that had awakened inside him. The response was immediate and terrifying. A shockwave rippled through the earth, stronger this time, sending dirt and rocks flying. A nearby tree shuddered, its leaves raining down. The crack in the ground widened, deepened. Izuku yanked his hand away, heart pounding in his chest. What is this? He whispered, voice trembling. What's happening to me? Fear and wonder battled within him as he stared at his hands. This power, this incredible, frightening power, was it real? Had he somehow, against all odds, developed a quirk? No, a voice of reason whispered in his mind. This isn't how quirks work. They manifest in childhood, not suddenly at 14 after eating strange fruit. Whatever this was, it wasn't normal. And Izuku Midoriya, who had spent his entire life studying quirks and their manifestations, knew better than anyone that the unexplained could be dangerous. He needed to get home. He needed to think. Rising shakily to his feet, Izuku cast one last glance at the cracked earth, evidence that something extraordinary had just occurred, and began the journey home, his mind racing faster than his feet could carry him. Inko Midoriya was setting the table when her son burst through the front door, pale-faced and wild-eyed. Izuku, she exclaimed, nearly dropping the plate she was holding. What's wrong? You look like you've seen a ghost. Izuku stood frozen in the doorway, his mind working frantically. What could he tell her? Hey mom, I ate a mysterious fruit and now I can shake the earth? He wasn't even sure what had happened himself. I'm fine, he managed, forcing a smile. Just ran home. Didn't want to be late for dinner. Inko frowned, maternal instinct telling her something was off. You're shaking, sweetie. Izuku looked down at his hands. They were indeed trembling slightly. Was it fear, excitement, or something else entirely? He couldn't tell anymore. Just tired, he said, slipping past her toward his room. I'm going to wash up before dinner. Once in the safety of his bathroom, Izuku stared at his reflection. He looked the same, green eyes, freckled cheeks, the same unruly dark green hair. But he didn't feel the same. Something fundamental had shifted inside him, like tectonic plates rearranging beneath the Earth's surface. He raised his hand, studying his palm. What if I try to do it again? Just something small to make sure I didn't imagine it. But fear kept his power in check. What if he lost control? What if he damaged the apartment? What if he hurt his mother? No, he needed space, somewhere safe to test this, whatever it was. Tomorrow after school, he would find a secluded place and figure out exactly what had happened to him. Could this really be it? The thought sent a tremor of hope through him. After all this time, could I finally have the power to become a hero? The next day at school was torture. Izuku moved through his classes in a daze, barely hearing the lessons, his mind fixated on the strange power that might or might not now reside within him. Several times, he caught Bakugo staring at him suspiciously. Normally, Izuku would have hunched his shoulders and avoided eye contact, but today he was too distracted to remember his usual submissive posture. If this is real, Izuku thought during lunch, staring at his untouched food. Everything changes. Everything. As soon as the final bell rang, Izuku was out the door, ignoring Bakugo's narrowed eyes. He headed straight for an abandoned construction site he knew about, a half-finished building project abandoned after funding dried up. Now it was just a concrete skeleton surrounded by rubble and warning signs, the perfect place to test destructive powers without anyone getting hurt. Heart-pounding, Izuku climbed through a gap in the chain-link fence. The site was eerily quiet, nothing but the distant sound of traffic and the occasional call of a bird breaking the silence. He stood in what would have been a parking lot, surrounded by chunks of concrete and twisted rebar. Taking a deep breath, Izuku extended his hand. Focus, he told himself. Remember how it felt yesterday. That pulse, that energy. At first, nothing happened. Doubt began to creep in. Had he imagined it all? Was yesterday just some hallucination brought on by stress and that disgusting fruit? Then he felt it. A strange vibration in his palm, as if the air itself was trembling against his skin. Izuku pushed, not physically but with that new sense he'd discovered, and the effect was instantaneous. A visible ripple distorted the air before his hand, traveling outward like a wave until it struck a pile of concrete chunks. The debris exploded outward as if hit by an invisible wrecking ball, dust and fragments flying in all directions. Izuku stared, mouth agape. I did that. Me. I did that. A bubble of laughter escaped him, incredulous, joyous, terrified. He tried again, this time aiming at the ground. The concrete beneath his feet cracked and buckled, a miniature earthquake spreading in a 10-foot radius. Izuku whispered, this is incredible. He spent the next hour testing, experimenting, learning. The power seemed to respond to his will, growing stronger or weaker based on his concentration. He could send vibrations through the air or through solid objects. He could create localized tremors or send out wide-reaching shockwaves. It was exhilarating. It was terrifying. It was everything he'd ever dreamed of. By the time the sun began to set, Izuku was exhausted but giddy with possibility. This power, this impossible, amazing power, it was real. And it was his. Is this how Kaken feels all the time? He wondered as he made his way home, careful to keep his hands in his pockets. This sense of capability? But questions still lingered. Where had this power come from? Why had it manifested now, after a decade of quirklessness? And perhaps most importantly, what was he going to do with it? Bakugo kicked a stone, sending it skittering across the sidewalk as he walked home. Something was off about Deku today. The nerd had been distracted, almost confident. No, that wasn't quite right. Preoccupied was more like it, as if Bakugo's very existence had become secondary to whatever was going on in that messy green head. It was annoying. What's he plotting? Bakugo wondered, scowling. He's been weird ever since yesterday. A prickle of unease ran down his spine. Had his words yesterday, the roof comment, actually pushed Deku over the edge? No, impossible. Deku was too much of a goody two-shoes to do anything drastic. Still, Bakugo changed direction, heading toward the Midoriya apartment. He just happened to walk by, that's all. Just to make sure the nerd wasn't doing anything stupid. Not that I care, Bakugo assured himself. I just don't want that on my conscience. As he rounded the corner onto Deku Street, a distant rumble caught his attention. It sounded like thunder, but the sky was clear. Then the ground beneath his feet shifted just slightly, but enough to make him stumble. What the hell? Bakugo steadied himself against a street lamp. In the distance, a plume of dust rose from what he recognized as the abandoned construction site at the edge of the neighborhood. Had something collapsed? Curiosity overpowered his original mission. Bakugo changed course, heading toward the dust cloud. If there was something interesting going on, he wanted to see it. By the time he reached the construction site, The dust was settling. Bakugo climbed up on a pile of rubble outside the fence, trying to get a better view. And there, in the center of what looked like a fresh crater, stood Izuku Midoriya. Bakugo froze, disbelieving. Deku was staring at his own hands with an expression Bakugo had never seen before. A mixture of wonder and power that transformed his usually timid features into something almost unrecognizable. As Bakugo watched, Deku extended his hand toward a concrete pillar. Nothing seemed to happen at first, then the pillar simply shattered, as if struck by an invisible force. What the fuck? Bakugo's mind reeled. What the actual fuck? This couldn't be happening. Deku was quirkless, useless, a nobody. He'd been that way since they were 4 years old when Bakugo's quirk had manifested and Deku's hadn't. It was the natural order of things. Bakugo was strong. Deku was weak. That's how it had always been. That's how it was supposed to be. But the evidence before his eyes told a different story. Whatever Deku was doing, it was powerful. More powerful than anything Bakugo had seen from their classmates. Maybe even more powerful than his own explosions. The thought sent a cold spike of something unfamiliar through Bakugo's chest. Was it fear? No, Bakugo thought fiercely. I'm not afraid of Deku. I could never be afraid of Deku. But as he watched Midoriya create another tremor, this one strong enough to knock down a partially constructed wall, Bakugo had to admit that something fundamental had changed. The balance had shifted. And for the first time in his life, Bakugo wasn't sure where he stood. The next morning, Izuku woke with a newfound sense of purpose. After years of hiding in the shadows, of shrinking himself to avoid Bakugo's wrath and society's pity, he finally had power. Real, tangible power that could change his life forever. But with that power came questions. How would he explain this sudden quirk manifestation? What would his mother say? His teachers? Bakugo? As he got ready for school, Izuku decided to keep his ability secret for now. At least until he understood it better, controlled it better. The last thing he needed was to accidentally unleash an earthquake in the middle of class. You seem cheerful this morning, his mother commented as he wolfed down breakfast. Did something good happen? Izuku paused, toast halfway to his mouth. Yes, Mom. I ate a strange fruit and now I can create earthquakes with my bare hands. Not exactly breakfast conversation, just feeling optimistic, he said instead, offering her a genuine smile. I think things are going to get better. Inko's eyes softened. She knew better than anyone how hard the past decade had been for her son. I hope so, Izuku. You deserve some happiness. Happiness. The word echoed in Izuku's mind as he walked to school. Was that what this was? This bubbling feeling in his chest, this lightness in his step? It felt more complex than simple happiness. It was anticipation, excitement, power, and yes, a touch of fear too. But most of all, it was hope. For the first time since that fateful doctor's appointment when he was 4, Izuku Midoriya had hope for his future. As he approached the school gates, a familiar voice called out behind him. Deku! Izuku tensed automatically, then forced himself to relax. I'm not defenseless anymore, he reminded himself, though the thought of using his power against Bakugo made him uncomfortable. He turned, facing his childhood friend turned bully. Good morning, Kaken. Bakugo's eyes narrowed suspiciously. What's with you? What do you mean? Izuku asked, trying to sound innocent. You're different, Bakugo said bluntly. Since yesterday. What happened? For a moment, Izuku considered telling him everything. Wouldn't Bakugo's face be priceless? To learn that quirkless, useless Deku suddenly had power? But something held him back. This was his secret, his power. And for once in his life, he wanted to hold onto something that was just his. Nothing happened, Izuku lied, meeting Bakugo's gaze steadily. I'm the same as always. Bakugo's hands clenched, small explosions popping from his palms. Don't lie to me, nerd. I'm not, Izuku said, surprising himself with his calm. Was this confidence born from his new power? But I should get to class. Don't want to be late. He turned, heading for the school entrance, feeling Bakugo's burning gaze on his back. It was a small act of defiance, walking away instead of cowering, but it felt monumental. Things are different now, Izuku thought as he climbed the stairs to his classroom. I'm different now. Little did he know just how different things were about to become. The school day passed in a blur of lectures and sidelong glances from Bakugo. Izuku tried to focus, but his mind kept drifting to his power, to the tremors he could create with a thought, the destruction he could unleash with a gesture. Is this how villains start? The disturbing thought crept in during mathematics. Thinking about the damage they could do, Izuku shook his head. No, he wanted to be a hero, to save people, not hurt them. This power was a gift, a chance to fulfill his lifelong dream. But as the final bell rang, another thought occurred to him. If he wanted to be a hero, he needed to start acting like one. Instead of heading to the construction site as he'd planned, Izuku made a detour to Dagoba Municipal Beach. Once a beautiful shoreline, it had become a dumping ground over the years, piled high with trash and discarded appliances. Perfect for training, Izuku thought as he picked his way through the garbage. And cleaning this up would be a real hero's work. Finding a secluded corner of the beach, hidden from view by towers of refuse, Izuku extended his hand toward a pile of abandoned furniture. Focusing his power, he sent a controlled tremor through the ground. The pile shuddered, then collapsed. Dust and splinters flew everywhere. Oops, Izuku muttered. Too much power. This was going to be harder than he thought. His new ability was incredible, but it was also destructive by nature. Using it to clean rather than destroy would require precision he didn't yet possess. But Izuku Midoriya was nothing if not determined. For the next hour, he practiced, gradually learning to control the intensity of his tremors. He discovered he could focus the vibrations into pinpoint accuracy or spread them over a wider area. He could even direct them through objects, causing distant targets to shake without disturbing what lay between. It's like having invisible hands, Izuku thought excitedly, as he managed to topple a refrigerator into a more organized pile without disturbing the surrounding trash. I can touch things without actually touching them. Lost in his training, Izuku didn't notice the figure watching from atop a nearby heap of garbage. Toshinori Yagi, better known to the world as All Might, though currently in his emaciated true form, had come to Dagoba Beach seeking solitude. The pain from his old injury was acting up today, and sometimes the quiet among the trash heaps helped clear his mind. He hadn't expected to find a green-haired teenager apparently using some kind of vibrational quirk to rearrange junk. Interesting, Toshinori thought, observing the boy's focused expression. He's practicing control, not just power. It was uncommon to see someone so young with such a methodical approach to quirk training. Most teenagers just wanted to make big explosions or flashy displays. This boy was different, calculating, analytical. As Toshinori watched, the boy created a tremor that neatly split a wooden table in half. The precision was impressive for what appeared to be a relatively new user. The way the boy's face lit up with each small success spoke volumes about his character. He reminds me a bit of myself, Toshinori thought with a nostalgic smile. That earnest determination. His musings were interrupted when the boy suddenly looked up, green eyes widening as they locked with Toshinori's sunken blue ones. "Oh!" the boy exclaimed, immediately dropping his hand. "I'm sorry. I didn't know anyone was here." Toshinori raised a placating hand. "No need to apologize, young man. This is public property, even if it's unconventional training grounds." The boy fidgeted nervously. "I wasn't doing anything bad, I promise. I was trying to clean up, actually." "Well, practice and clean up." "I can see that," Toshinori said, carefully picking his way down the trash mountain. "That's an interesting quirk you have there. Vibration manipulation, something like that," the boy said, looking oddly uncomfortable. "It's new." Toshinori raised an eyebrow. "You? Most quirks manifest in early childhood. Mine didn't," the boy said simply, though there seemed to be more to the story. Intrigued, Toshinori extended a bony hand. "I'm too," he caught himself. "I'm Yagi. And you are?" "Izuku Midoriya," the boy replied, shaking Toshinori's hand with surprising firmness. Midoriya. The name struck a chord in Toshinori's memory. Where had he heard it before? "Well, young Midoriya, what brings you to this trash heap for training? Surely there are better facilities available." Midoriya's eyes dropped to the sand. "I wanted somewhere private. Somewhere I couldn't hurt anyone if I lost control." The words sent a tingle of recognition through Toshinori. How many times had he said something similar during his early days with One for All? "A responsible approach," he acknowledged. "But practicing alone can be dangerous too. What if you injured yourself?" Midoriya shrugged. "Better me than someone else." The simple statement, spoken without a trace of self-pity, resonated with Toshinori. This boy had a hero's heart. That much was clear. "Tell you what," Toshinori found himself saying. "I sometimes come here in the evenings. If you'd like, I could observe your training, just to make sure you're safe." The offer surprised them both. Toshinori wasn't sure why he'd made it, except that something about this earnest, green-haired boy called to him. Midoriya's face lit up like a sunrise. "Really? You do that? But why? You don't even know me." Toshinori smiled faintly. "Let's just say I recognize dedication when I see it." Besides, I was a teacher once. Old habits die hard. It wasn't entirely a lie. Toshinori had indeed taught briefly at UA before becoming a full-time hero. And something told him this Midoriya boy could benefit from some guidance. Thank you, Mr. Yagi. Midoriya bowed deeply. I promise I won't waste your time. As the boy straightened, a determined fire burning in his eyes, Toshinori felt a twinge of something. Nostalgia? Hope? He couldn't quite name it. But for the first time in a long while, Toshinori Yagi felt like he might have found something worth investing in besides his hero work. And maybe, just maybe, this strange, vibration-wielding boy was exactly what he needed to rekindle his own fading spark. As twilight descended over Dagoba Beach, Izuku made his way home, exhaustion weighing his limbs but his heart lighter than it had been in years. Not only had he made significant progress with his new power, but he'd also met someone who seemed genuinely interested in helping him. Mr. Yagi was strange, rail-thin with hollow cheeks and sunken eyes, but there was something about him that inspired trust. The way he'd watched Izuku train, offering occasional suggestions but mostly just observing, had been oddly comforting. I wonder if he used to be a pro hero, Izuku thought as he walked. He has that same presence, even though he looks ill. Lost in thought, Izuku didn't notice the figure following him until a voice called out from behind. Hey, Deku! Izuku froze. Bakugo. Slowly, he turned. Bakugo stood a few meters away, hands jammed in his pockets, expression unreadable in the gathering darkness. Kakin, Izuku acknowledged, tensing instinctively. What are you doing here? I saw you, Bakugo said bluntly. Yesterday, at the construction site. Izuku's heart stuttered. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't play dumb. Bakugo snapped, taking a step forward. I saw you destroy a concrete pillar without even touching it. I saw you create a fucking crater with your bare hands. Izuku swallowed hard. He knows. There was no point denying it. So what if you did? Izuku asked, surprised by the steadiness in his voice. Bakugo's eyes widened, clearly taken aback by Izuku's lack of denial or fear. So what? So what? You've been quirkless your entire life, and now suddenly you can create earthquakes? What the hell, Deku? The genuine confusion in Bakugo's voice was almost comical. For once, the explosive boy seemed completely off balance. I don't know what to tell you, Kakin, Izuku said truthfully. It just happened. Bullshit. Bakugo exploded, literally, small detonations popping from his palms. Quirks don't just happen out of nowhere. Mine did, Izuku thought, but he kept the detail about the strange fruit to himself. Something told him that information was better kept secret. I can't explain it, he said instead. But it's real. I have a quirk now. The words hung in the air between them, changing everything. For 10 years, their relationship had been defined by this imbalance. Bakugo had power, Izuku did not. Now the scales had shifted. Bakugo's face contorted through a series of emotions. Disbelief, anger, confusion, and something else. Fear? Show me. Bakugo demanded suddenly. What? Show me your quirk. Right now. Prove it. Izuku hesitated. Using his power near residential areas seemed dangerous. But the challenge in Bakugo's eyes was impossible to ignore. After years of bullying, of being looked down upon, part of Izuku needed Bakugo to acknowledge him. Concentrating, Izuku extended his hand. He sent the smallest tremor he could manage through the air, just enough to make the can dance and rattle across the pavement. Bakugo watched, expression unreadable, as the can jittered to a stop at his feet. That's nothing, he scoffed, but his voice lacked its usual conviction. I saw you destroy concrete yesterday. A familiar anger flared in Izuku's chest. Would Bakugo never acknowledge him? Even now? Without thinking, Izuku thrust his palm toward the ground. The pavement beneath them cracked, a spiderweb of fractures spreading outward. The earth trembled, strong enough to make Bakugo stumble. Is that better? Izuku asked quietly, pulling his power back before it could spread further. Bakugo stared at the cracked pavement, then at Izuku, something like genuine shock on his face. For once in his life, Katsuki Bakugo seemed at a loss for words. I'm not quirkless anymore, Kakin, Izuku said, meeting his childhood friend's gaze. I'm not useless. I never was. The words hung between them, heavy with a decade of history, of pain, of one-sided rivalry. Bakugo's hands clenched and unclenched, small explosions popping erratically. For a moment, Izuku thought he might attack, might try to re-establish the old hierarchy through force. Instead, Bakugo turned on his heel and walked away, shoulders rigid with tension. Kakin. Izuku called after him, surprised by the sudden retreat. Bakugo paused but didn't turn around. "This changes nothing," he said, voice tight with suppressed emotion. "You're still Deku. You're still beneath me." But as he stalked off into the darkness, both boys knew it was a lie. Everything had changed, and neither of them knew what came next. Later that night, Izuku lay in bed, staring at the All Might posters that covered his walls. His mind raced with the day's events, training at the beach, meeting the strange Mr. Yagi, confronting Bakugo. "I really have a quirk now," he thought, raising his hand above his face, examining it in the moonlight that filtered through his window. "I can be a hero." The realization still seemed fragile, like a dream that might shatter if examined too closely. After so many years of being told it was impossible, the sudden possibility of achieving his dream felt almost unreal. And yet, the cracked pavement where he'd confronted Bakugo was real. The toppled garbage at Dagoba Beach was real. The power that hummed beneath his skin, responsive to his will, was undeniably real. Izuku closed his eyes, envisioning his future. UA High School, the premier hero academy. The entrance exam was only 10 months away. With this power, he could pass. He could stand on equal footing with Bakugo and all the other gifted students. He could become the hero he'd always dreamed of being. But there's so much I don't understand, Izuku thought, the euphoria fading slightly. Where did this power come from? What are its limits? And why do I feel like I'm only scratching the surface of what it can do? The strange fruit he'd eaten had changed everything, but it had also introduced new mysteries into his life. One step at a time, Izuku told himself as sleep began to claim him. First, I master this power. Then I get into UA. Then I become a hero worthy of All Might's legacy. As Izuku drifted off, he didn't notice the faint blue glow emanating from his fingertips, nor the slight tremor that ran through his bedroom floor, causing the All Might figurines on his shelf to vibrate in silent applause. The age of Deku, the quirkless boy, was over. The age of Deku, wielder of the Tremor fruit, had just begun. Yo, if that didn't blow your mind, rewatch it. Deku just tapped into seismic power, and we haven't even gone full throttle yet. Part 2 is cooking, but we're only dropping it when we hit that 100-like goal. So smash that button, sub if you haven't, and comment what quirk or devil fruit mashup you want to see next. Appreciate you, ChronoCrew legends, for riding with me through every twist and tremor. Stay locked in, stay legendary, and I'll catch you in the next timeline. Chronos out.